With increased economic uncertainty, many CFOs are adopting an agile monthly forecasting method instead of focusing on annual plans. With this kind of approach, no budget or headcount is committed. Everything is up for discussion at any moment. That's just one way that today's financial executives are navigating in this economy. Learn more on this episode of Future Proof.
The future is here already. It's just not evenly distributed. Yet. Today's world teems with innovation. The nexus of hardware, software, and human ingenuity promises a revolution in possibilities. What does tomorrow look like? Witness Future Proof.
All right, folks, welcome to the future indeed. The future is open. The future is transparent. The future is highly visible, or I sure hope that it is. I think that it is. That's the direction we're all going. Yours truly, Eric Kavanagh here, and the only coast-to-coast radio show that's all about the information economy. And folks, we're going to do a hot topic today that is applicable to basically every person and every business. We're going to talk about financial visibility, being able to see your money, the big picture of your money, really mostly of your company's money, how much money you have, where it is, who's spending it, all that kind of stuff, having the ability to be very strategic about cash flow and about budgeting. And frankly, it's changing rapidly, largely because of visibility. We have a whole payables space now that has just lit up the marketplace, lots of different companies, and they're doing very, very clever things all around helping you better understand your business and better manage your business from a financial perspective. So the topic is seeing helps believing, the value of financial visibility. And we're going to talk about that with a couple of guests. We have Alex Ostroff on the line and Marie Walker as well. And I'll just give you a few thoughts to start the hour. Everyone knows that when you understand where you are financially, you can make good decisions. It's when you get hit by blind spots, you get broadsided by something that causes lots and lots of trouble with your organization. Well, these days, I've seen it in our business for sure that budgeting is now an ongoing process. Budgeting used to be an annual process. You'd map out your budget for the whole year, and then you kind of mark where you are at various points over the, maybe once a month or something, look at financial reports. But that is no longer good enough, in part because things change very quickly, in part because it's just a very dynamic marketplace. So having visibility into your solvency, and then if you have an ideal scenario, you can actually see into the worlds of your partners, especially if they're key partners and allies of your organization. If you can see across those boundaries, now you're doing even better because you have a better understanding of what resources are available and how things are changing, even in real time. So let's bring in our guests. First, we'll bring in Marie Walker. She's with Open Future, big advocate of open banking. Marie, tell us a bit about yourself and your organization and how you are evangelizing the power of financial visibility.
Thank you, Eric. So I'm based in the UK, and we, in the last 5 years, have had something of a major transformation in our financial services industry. And basically, it has been all around this term called open banking, which is making your financial data work for you rather than for the banks or the financial services companies that historically have held it and held it tight. So now it's all around you, and you can benefit from the insights that has. And in the Open Future world, which is my company, what we're trying to do is steer the conversation around the world, because this is a global phenomenon. It's regulated in some areas, it's driven by the market in others, like in the US, but it is happening and it is going really, really big. And what we're doing is we're trying to help spread the word, let people know about this, and drive further towards the open future, where you actually start to see cross-sector data coming into play. So all of your retail transactions, giving you insights into where you're spending and why, and whether you've got the best credit, or if you're a business, understanding, as Eric said, about who your suppliers are and what their financial history is. So it really is quite a dynamic situation, and that's what we're tracking.
Yeah, that's fantastic stuff. And I love the push towards transparency. I'm a big fan of transparency. What do they say? Sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? But also aggregated numbers over time can be very compelling. I mean, I'm starting to see this now in the fintech space with companies like Capital One, for example, that are sending you automated emails saying, hey, you had charged for the same thing twice. Is this accurate? Was this really what you've done? It's obviously a fraud detection algorithm, but also it's just transparency into what's happening. And you can learn a lot by having your banking partner analyze this and give you some information, right? Or give you some insight.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the earliest use cases for open banking has been account aggregation. So everybody has more than one account. I mean, you have your credit card, your current account, you might have a loan or a mortgage or a pension. If you can see on a dashboard, a single view, all of the money that you have or don't have, you can make decisions based on that. And historically, the data you could access was all historic, whereas this is real time. So it gives you a 360 view of your finances. Now, this isn't just for consumers, but it's also for small businesses. So it's hugely beneficial for cash flow and understanding the position your company is in. What it also does is it doesn't look just at what your income is, it looks at affordability. So if you are going for a loan, you might think, well, hang on, I earn enough to service these repayments, but you haven't taken into account all of the other things that are pulling on your account on a monthly basis. So this can tell you whether this is a good product for you to take. And certainly in terms of the UK, where we're further ahead in regulation, there is now a consumer duty on the banks and financial service providers to check that the product they're selling you is appropriate and will work for you, is in your best interests. So all of these things are really beginning to help in terms of giving people access to financial services that are suitable for them.
Well, and you know what's interesting here is that, again, as an individual, you can certainly take a look at your accounts. You can export into a spreadsheet your expenses and kind of spend some time sorting it and looking at it, how much are we spending here, spending there, et cetera. Well, these days, the systems in place to run big business and even small business are getting so sophisticated that, for example, when you're running your books in QuickBooks, a lot of times it can automatically ascertain what kind of expense that was, because it's a restaurant. We know it's a restaurant because of the metadata that's captured in the system. We know this is a CPA, a certified public accountant firm. We know this is a law firm, et cetera. And you can obviously correct things. Maybe it doesn't get it right all the time. But the point is, a lot of that data is already out there in that metadata. And what that means is banks at a certain scale should be able to look at your profile and say, you spend more than most people on energy, you spend less than most people on food, or whatever the case may be. That's pretty useful information to help you understand how you can save more money or get more value for your money. It's a very interesting dynamic because you get this, the value of the bigger picture all the way mapped down to the granular world of your personal expenses, right? I mean, that's a very compelling storyline. That's the value proposition of open banking, right, Marie?
Yeah, absolutely. We have lots of companies in the UK and across Europe that are doing exactly this. So they are your personal servant, looking at your finances, looking at all of the things that you have outgoing from your account, subscriptions you might not have remembered you had, car insurance that you haven't bothered to change provider year on year. Yeah, and it will advise you on what you could be saving. And now we are getting to the point where you can authorize these tools to switch you. So you actually then have a pot that you can see your savings going into. So, I mean, it is an absolutely fantastic thing. But one of the other things about visibility is invisibility. And I think this is something that open banking and open finance are really going to tackle. And A lot of people listening to this might find themselves in the situation where they struggle to get a loan because they don't have a credit history.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get a loan without a credit score, but if you haven't got a credit score, you can't get a loan. With open banking, it can look at your whole data self, your whole financial data self, and it will take a risk assessment based on your performance rather than on your income. And it can extend you credit where you might have struggled to get credit before. One example that we see a lot in the UK are gig economy workers. Gig economy workers do not have a regular income. So they struggle to get things like mortgages, pensions, loans. With open banking, it looks at you over a period of many months and will make a judgment on that basis and offer you credit. So I think these things are hugely beneficial, both for individuals, but also for struggling companies, economies, because we've got a whole class of people who are now included. They're visible because we're looking at the bigger data picture.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, that really is exciting stuff, and it's leveling the playing field. And I think that's what we want, right? Everyone roots for the underdog. We want to level the playing field and give advantages to the smaller fries out there and the smaller companies that are trying to get a leg up, because let's face it, that's where a lot of the innovation comes from, is from the startups, right? From the smaller companies. Let's bring in Alex Ostroff from a company called Monetize More. He's in the payables space. So Alex, tell us a bit about yourself and your company and how you're leveraging fintech innovation and payability.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me on, Eric. As you mentioned, my name is Alex Ostroff. I'm the financial controller of Monetize More. And basically, we are an ad technology company. So we help different publishers. You can think websites. You know, when you go online, you go to a website, you see advertisements come up. We help that publisher or that website monetize and make more money off their advertising revenue. So, you know, you can think of us how you want, but it is, you know, a very fast and innovative space, and it's one where there is transparency needed all throughout. So, for instance, with our publishers, we have open-ended contracts. This means that they can get up and leave whenever they choose. So how do we keep them? That's, you know, it's been tough, but we've developed our internal software, which is fully transparent, and, you know, it shows them different metrics that they wouldn't be able to get on their own or with other competitors. So, you know, we're able to show them things like not only the revenue that they're earning each month, the amount that we're paying them each month, but also things like their, you know, revenue per 1,000 impressions. We show them, you know, different reports where they can compare revenues from, you know, the different advertising networks that they use. And, you know, they have this all in one dashboard, so they don't have to go to the different websites that they have. They can get it all in one place. And, you know, from there, we're able to, you know, to really show them their full financial health, not only, you know, in terms of dollars and numbers, but also in percentages and impressions, which is important in this space.
Yeah, that's really important, and that's very exciting to me personally, frankly, because you know, I'm a data guy and I'm a media guy, and I have seen the dramatic sea change over the last, let's call it 20 years to be generous, of the old media world, which was, you know, largely governed by internal ideas and resources, and you just had to kind of trust people on what impact your ad was going to have, and you had all these big full-page ads. Well, that whole model just collapsed and burned in the last 5 to 10 years or so, and so you've seen this real feverish attempt by media companies to reinvent themselves, to find new ways to understand how to sell advertising, how to make money from all this stuff. And what I get excited about is thinking about digital transformation writ large. So this is a very well-known concept these days. How can we digitize our operations and really automate things so we're not doing all these manual processes? And what you're talking about is being able to enable companies to reinvent themselves using information. And what's cool is that there are lots of different ways that companies do digital transformation. A lot of times you'll look at processes like order to cash. How can we collapse this timeline? How can we expedite certain processes? You can look at how your website operates, the interface. There are all sorts of different things you can do. But if you're going to take a really hard look at changing your business and doing a better job in the future, what better way than to build out meaningful views of your business from the money flow? Because where the money goes is telling you what's happening. Where the money comes tells you what's happening. And so if you get a real good look at those two realities, which is where's your money coming from, where's your money going, and you can build out views of that so that the business can understand, that's a very interesting and very compelling approach to optimizing your business. All right, folks, to the future we go. We're talking to Alex Ostroff from Monetize More and Marie Walker from Open Future. And we're talking all about transparency, visibility in finance and money. And Alex, I'd like for you to go into your business model a bit. I think it's really fascinating. Could you explain, like you just did in the break here, what it is that you folks do, who your buyers are basically, and how you operate?
Yeah, sure thing, Eric. So I guess to preface, so I'm in the finance department, so I have a general understanding of our business, and a pretty good one. But to dive into the specifics, the nitty gritty, I don't want to downplay kind of what we do. So I'll give you a general overview. But basically, we act as the middleman between the publisher and the advertising network. So like I said, the publisher would be a website or an application, an app that you download from the App Store. They have their advertisements show up, but those advertisements, there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes that most people don't know about. They just see the ad come up. Some of them watch the ad, some of them don't, and so on. But essentially, Monetize More, we help the publishers make as much as they can off of the advertisements that are shown to the end consumer on their medium. And how we do this is we have this technology, internally generated technology, Pub Guru, which not only shows the publisher exactly the transparency that they need, shows them how their websites, how their applications are doing, shows them how different strategies are affecting basically their clicks, their impressions, the revenue that they generate per each impression. But that's kind of that's the financial visibility. But there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. That's with our ad optimization department, and they work very closely with our publishers. So again, they're being as transparent as they can. They're telling the publisher what strategy they're going to use. So whether that's moving an advertisement from the top to the left-hand side, making it smaller, changing what type of advertisement they're going to show, and what that does is they change the strategy, and then you can see the results in real time on our platform, Pub Guru. So you're able to see whether that increases the ad impressions, whether it brings in more money for the publisher, or whether the ad optimization team needs to kind of revisit the strategy. And there's a science behind it, but all of our publishers are different, whether they're in the personal finance blog or they're a gaming application. Like each one is going to tailor to a different audience. So it really is a skill, but it's working with the publisher and being fully transparent, so they know exactly what's showing on their website, exactly how it's performing, and from there they can make informed decisions and kind of be able to understand the money that they're coming in, the impressions that they're getting.
Yeah, and it's so much fun these days compared to the old world of marketing. There's a famous quote by, I think, John Wanamaker, who said, I know half of my advertising works great. The trouble is I don't know which half. And that's old school. Like these days, which advertising is working because you can track it. And you have to do a lot of trial and error, and it's a constantly moving target. But we've had a girl on this show from a company, I'll have to look it up to remember the name, but they do analysis of your advertisements, of your content. They actually tap into the YouTube API and can show you where people start trailing off on your ad. It's at 9 seconds. There's another big bump at 12 seconds or whatever. So you can kind of look at it, and the small changes that they make can have a huge impact. Like they talk about when you're supposed to release or show the brand, for example. At what point in the commercial do you find out whose commercial this is? that makes a big difference if the logo is up at the top or down at the bottom. All these little things, and that's kind of what you're talking about with the ad design group, right? Is being able to optimize that. But on the other side is just knowing the money, knowing how much money we're generating from this ad on that network versus this ad on that network. And all that kind of data is extremely powerful for being able to optimize the decisions that you make, right, Alex?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I said, you don't know what happens behind the scenes, but some of these larger companies that they could have millions of dollars coming in just through their advertisements alone. So if it's a difference between thousands or hundreds of thousands and millions, then you're obviously going to want to put as much effort in possible to maximize that.
Yeah, right. And Marie Walker, I'll bring you back in from Open Future. When I look at the fintech space, and we work with Topology. There are other folks who allow us to bring you this content free of charge. That's a very interesting fintech player. But if I look at the advances in fintech, it's really quite remarkable. My first experience was I was in QuickBooks, and we had tried to go out and get factoring at Chase Bank or somewhere like that. And they're like, who cares? Leave us alone. They didn't even bother to have a conversation about it. And then one day I'm in QuickBooks and I see a little icon that just says, hey, if you need money, you can get an advance on the invoices that you have in your system. I'm like, well, how interesting is that? It's a fintech company, and there are lots of them. Bill.com, over the last, I would say 4 or 3 years, I have watched almost every vendor we work with move from writing checks. They used to all write checks and mail checks. Now they're all going through either Bill.com or one of these other payment platforms, which is great because, again, you can track everything. You can see, I get an email that says, okay, XYZ Corp has accepted your invoice. Now I know that they got it. I mean, it's so nice. I was telling before the show my story about driving back in 2002, and I logged onto my bank account and the check number was underlined. I was like, oh, wait, that looks like a link. I clicked on it and there's a scanned version of my check. I'm like, wow, amen. That kind of visibility is so powerful because especially if you're a small company or even a mid-sized company, just knowing that they got your invoice and it's now in processing is pretty valuable information, because there are times when someone forgot to send it through or whatever. And then if you're a small company, you got to wait another 30 days to get paid. That's a pretty painful scenario. So Marie, it's very exciting to see the amount of visibility that we're now getting, not just into the numbers, the money itself, but into the processes and where we are in that process, right, Marie?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that comes to mind here is it's not just about visibility. What we're talking about going forwards is action. Mm-hmm. So it's great to be able to see that somebody opened your email and they've received your invoice, but can you imagine how much better it is for a small business in 3-4 years' time, where you can send an invoice that has a smart contract attached to it, where it will automatically give you payment without you having to chase the other accounts department and speak to whoever knows many people who have no idea who you are. So action, I think, is what's coming out of the current financial visibility. So we have historic visibility, and I'm talking about basically what's happening in 80% of the occasions worldwide at the moment, and that's giving you a view of what's happening in your business or your personal accounts. But it is slightly historic. And then when we start looking at what's happening with data starting to revolve around you as an individual or you as a company rather than your bank or financial services provider, then you can start making actions happen off the back of that. And getting automatic payment for your invoices is just one example.
Yeah. Well, and then like I think it was Bill.com send me a notice, say, okay, your client has paid you. It should be there in 2 days, but you can get it sooner if you want to for just a small little fee. It wasn't a whole lot of money because it was a big check. And I was like, you know what? I'll take that. So I said yes. And boom, I got all the money immediately because they can cover the float. Basically, they have the cash flow to give me the money I want now. And they just made X amount of dollars on a very, very easy transaction, which is just sending the money faster to this guy. We know it's already arrived. I mean, this is the clearinghouse business, right? And, you know, you've kind of alluded to smart contracts, which are part of the blockchain ecosystem, right? And I've got a bunch of friends from an old life in the risk management world. And those clearinghouses, I mean, that whole process, it used to be very painstaking, long, and very serious. And now a lot of that stuff can be automated. So what does that do? It saves time on the sort of tedious but really important tasks and gets us through to the ability to do new interesting things. What do you think, Maureen?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the idea of invoice discounting or factoring your invoices, so you take a little bit of a hit, but you get the money right now. What we're seeing with open banking is companies that are being set up just to serve small and medium-sized businesses who are a historically underserved sector of the community when it comes to banking, because it hasn't been profitable for the banks to really focus on them. But with a greater visibility of their data, you have some specialist providers now who are coming in just to serve the SMBs, and they're not taking a cut in the sense that historically that they did per invoice. They're actually offering income smoothing business banking to really small guys, and they're not taking a percentage. They're doing this as a service because they know over the course of a year they will get the benefits and all of the other reasons why bankers do what bankers do. But in the meantime, the data is working for the small guy, and the small guy is not paying extra to have a regular income in their bank account, which the bank is providing and smoothing out over the year so that they don't have the peaks and troughs that small businesses battle with in cash flow.
Right. Yeah, and that is tough stuff. I mean, peaks and troughs are what you have to worry about if you're a small business. So again, the more visibility you have into where the money's going, who's getting it, how much flexibility there is at different parts of the process, that's just great news for the business owner. And I'll throw it over to Alex to comment on. Can you maybe walk us through some of the things that you're able to see now because you're using some of this fintech technology? Like what are some of the serious changes that you've seen in your own workflow?
Yeah, for sure. A big one would have to be in our payment processing. So, before we would manually initiate maybe 300 to 400 wire payments a month, but now with technology, you can, do this simultaneously. And, when you're sending money all across the world, it's pretty important that, it's trust. You can trust the processor that you're using. It's going to get there. That it's not going to run into too many regulatory concerns. And that's what we have with, one of the payment processors. And that's alleviated so much time, so much stress off our team so that we can, spend that time doing more meaningful work, like things like, being able to assess our financial health and look into different investment opportunities, things along those lines. That's, one part of it. But our company uses, so many different softwares that provide so much different insight. And the key, I guess, problem now is trying to pull all that information together. We have a great development team, but there's so much data, so much, different software out there that can, manage so many different tasks. But to pull it together to get, I guess unity among your data is definitely the biggest concern now, and I think it's probably a struggle among a lot of companies because you can kind of harmonize it within an ERP system or things along those lines, but it's definitely not easy, especially now with all these different startups and the open API that needs to be first assessed, check it for security threats, or make sure that it's operating as intended, and then having the knowledge to be able to pull that together and get meaningful information from the data that it contains.